want to get into the betting markets a little bit here because I mentioned off the top that I anywhere from minus 185 to even shorter than minus 200. The U.S. is a favorite this week, which boggles my mind. The fact that we all know it's going to be really, really close. And it has been really, really close. And Europe has got the better of the U.S. team over the last part of the last quarter century. And so the odds makers still keep installing the U.S. as a favorite. Any idea why? I'm waiting to. I'm going to talk to some odds makers this week. I haven't yet, but I think there's a question in there. Now, granted, these odds always reflect where the public is betting, and maybe there's just more of the public that looks at the favorite and says, well, oh yeah, the favorite's going to win. But is there any, you have any inkling? Like we've seen this time and again where we install one team as the underdog, and it's the same team every time. That team takes on the underdog mentality and they go out and win. And so we keep sort of, and I say we, but the odds makers continue to install the U.S. as favorites every single time this thing is played. Do they deserve to be the favorites? Probably based on paper, but maybe not based on the results of recent years.
Yeah, I think it's maybe just the human nature of looking at the top of the world rankings and seeing, all right, U.S. has got Colin Morikawa. He just won the Open Championship. And, you run down the list, like Dustin Johnson, Bryson DeChambeau, Brooks Koepka. You just look at maybe that's the just natural inclination. And we just have a goldfish memory when it comes to remembering what happened 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 8 years ago. I guess maybe that's part of it, but from an analytical perspective, look, the Europeans have a point differential of plus 24 in the Ryder Cup since 2002, and it's spread out across the three formats. They're plus 12 in singles, and I think it's plus 9 in foursomes, plus 3 in four balls. So regardless of the format, they've been better during this era. The key, I have to kind of abstain a little bit from making an actual nail down prediction because my company works, as anybody who listens to this know, works closely with Team Europe. But yes. I will say that the last two times the Europeans won, they absolutely dominated foursomes, 13-3. Like it wasn't a fair fight.
Yep.
That's the format you need to look at. If foursomes, 7 of the last 8 times, the team that won the most points in foursomes won the Ryder Cup. The only exception being 2012 at Medina when there was the huge comeback in singles for Team Europe. That's where I would look if you're looking to see the outcome is if the Americans can just split in foursomes. I think they have a really big advantage. The European side needs to take advantage of the foursomes play where they've been so good. The last 6 times the Europeans won the Ryder Cup, they have a plus 15 point differential in foursomes. So that's just statistically so important for the European side. That's the format I look at this week moving forward.
It's funny because based on that, that's probably how I'm betting this week, and that's how I've suggested that other people might want to approach it, which is let's wait until we see the foursomes. I like the U.S. to win this week. Unlike you, I'm not Herb Street this week. I'm not doing the game, and so I can indeed make a prediction. I'm predicting the U.S. will win this week, but there's no way I'm chasing a minus 195 number going into it. I'm just not betting on them. I'm not that confident in the U.S. And so what I'd like to do is wait until after we see Friday morning's foursomes, then Friday afternoon's four balls, then Saturday morning's foursomes, and maybe Europe takes a little bit of a lead at that point. And so maybe Europe's up 7-5, 7.5 to 4.5 after that foursome session. And maybe you can hop on the U.S. at something closer to even money going into Saturday afternoon four balls. And if so, I like jumping on the U.S. team at that point because I do think the U.S. team is going to be stronger in Sunday's singles. And I do think that if it's a close score going into that, I think even if Europe's up by a couple of points, that the U.S. can certainly come from behind and win enough matches to bring it home on Sunday. But I'm looking for some live value. I just can't jump on that betting number beforehand. And look, if you're, I don't know what kind of pool this would be, but if you're in some pool where it's like, just pick the winner, okay, you can go out and pick the U.S. before it starts. If you actually want to make some money on this thing, and that's my suggestion, it could go horribly wrong. Look, if the U.S. plays really well in both foursome sessions, instead of minus 190, it's going to be minus 350 going into Saturday afternoon four balls. And people out there are going to be like, Sobel, I was going to bet it. And you told me not to. You told me to wait. And now I can't bet it because the number is so short that there's no point in it. Sorry if that happens, but I really do think that it's going to be closer. And I think the line's going to be a lot closer when we get to sort of the midway point on Saturday.